Hello guys, welcome to episode 6 of the Elephant Room podcast with me, Frank Shortle, Ian Hand and Shane Martin. We have an incredibly special episode this week with a very special guest. A producer who's produced more of our favourite albums than any other. The Seattle-based producer, engineer, mixing engineer and the founder of Laundry Room Studios. He's worked with such bands as Nirvana, Foo Fighters, Melvins, Presidents of the United States of America, Pearl Jam, Brad and Stone Gossard, Thunder Pussy, Everclear, and the list just goes on and on and on. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the Foo Fighters' first self-titled album in 1995. As you know, we cover a classic album every week, usually brought to you by Ian. So myself and Ian sat down with Barrett Jones a few days ago, and we discussed his work with the many bands we just mentioned and also with Dave Grohl and that Foo Fighters' first album. Are you excited, Shane?
I'm really excited. This week I get to be just a normal listener. I get to just sit back and enjoy the podcast. But normally every week I just fast forward your parts and just listen to my parts. So it's just going to be, this
You're
week
forced to listen to it now, Shane.
No, I'm only joking. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Like, obviously you've just gone through a laundry list there of really like influential bands on the music that we make, and it's just, great to hear from the person who's behind the glass,
Yeah, I think, Ian, you can agree that Foo Fighters' first album and, of course, Nirvana are huge influences on us, and the Melvins with yourself as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the drum sound alone is such a massive influence on us and what we try to get. And Barrett Jones is a little nugget into what he was trying to achieve with the drum sound. Just, I think it made the entire interview for me. So I'll leave that as a surprise for the listeners.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Without further ado, here is Barrett Jones.
Great record.
Excellent album. We learned a lot from
Great
it.
record.
So I'm Ian,
Right.
and the other gentleman is Frank. How's everything over in Seattle?
It's good. Winter. Well, cold. You guys have the same weather we do, so.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
So it's 25 years. It's anniversary for the Foo's first album. And we try to do like a classic album segment every week. Anytime it's like a 50th or 40th anniversary or something like that. And we saw that the Foo's album has turned 25. And we're like, we can talk crap about it all day long. Let's find someone who actually knows the details. And absolutely honoured to have yourself on to talk about it. If you'd like to give us a little background on just when you first got to Seattle and the different people you worked with in the lead up to working with Grohl himself on the actual, what would become the Foo's 95 album.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to Seattle because Dave told me to come out here, basically. So I met Dave when he was 14, and he was in his first band, and he recorded at my studio that I had just opened up when I was 18, I think. And his first band was called Freak Baby. He was playing guitar, and it was a punk rock hardcore band. They weren't very good. Specifically, the drummer wasn't very good for a hardcore band, which needed to be very fast and precise, and he wasn't. They were just kind of sloppy. But they were 14, so of course. But then they came back a few months later, and Dave had switched to drums. And they changed their name to Mission Impossible. And I just remember being totally blown away by how amazing of a drummer he was for a 14-year-old who hadn't really played drums before. But he was the fastest and hardest hitting, most precise drummer I'd ever seen. I mean, he was a spaz. He was, as a teenager, he was total spaz, which works with hardcore music. But his power, especially with the kick and snare drum, was unlike any other drummer I'd ever seen. Nobody could do it. So then the reason I met them is the singer of that band was friends with people I was friends with in other bands who was an older brother. So we sort of started hanging out in the same circles. And then a few years later, I had moved out of my parents' house, which is where I first started the recording studio, and moved into a group house with some friends of mine. And Dave joined a band called Dane Bramage with a roommate in that house of mine. And then they would start, they rehearsed in there.
And then, did you actually record stuff for Scream at all, or was that completely...
I did not record any studio stuff with them, but I did tour with them as a live sound man in '87, I think, or something like that. I did one American tour with them. It was a month in a van, 8 of us in a van, where actually in the middle of the tour we got stuck because their bass player kind of disappeared and Skeeter just left.
Yeah.
Fly another guy out to finish the tour.
The infamous Skeeter.
Yeah. That's another story about Skeeter Thompson.
Great tune.
So then after Dane Bramage, so Dave quit Dane Bramage to join Scream because they were touring, and that's all he really wanted to do was tour. And during the times when Scream was not touring, we were playing together in a band that I was writing the songs for called Churn. And we would record a bunch of all the time because I had a recording studio. So we were hanging out and recording. And one day he said, "I got this song, let me record it." And he played everything on it. And that was When Gods Look Down, which I think it eventually went on to be on a Scream record. They re-recorded it and went on a Scream record.
So that would have been the first time that he did everything on a record.
Yeah. Well, it recorded by somebody else. I think he might have had I don't know if he actually did have a cassette 4-track or something. He didn't though. No, yeah, that was the first time he'd ever done it.
Cool. And that's like late 80s?
Yes. Probably 88, 89, something like that.
And then it was when then Dave moves to Seattle in like 90, late 90s?
In 90, yeah, is when he moved. So he was touring with Scream, and once again, Skeeter left in the middle of the tour. Disappeared. And he had called Buzz Osborne from the Melvins, saying that he was ready to do something else and try to get out of the situation because he was stranded in LA, I think. And that's when Buzz told him about Nirvana looking for a bass player, or a drummer, I mean. So he flew up to Seattle and auditioned. In the meantime, he had called me on the phone, like when this was all going down. And so it's like, yeah, Skeeter left again. And I was like, great, come on back and we can finally do my band for real. And he was like, well, there's this band in Seattle called Nirvana that's looking for a drummer and they're getting major label interest. And I'm going to go up there and blow them away and get in their band.
It must have been really appealing for you to go to Seattle because everything, like there's just so many bands up there at the time.
Yeah, but I wasn't that aware of what was going on there. So after he joined in 90 and then they, started, I think they did some demos and then they were starting to shop the record around. And then when they actually started to record Nevermind, I flew out to LA for a week while they were recording it and hung out with them, stayed with them in their apartment. So that was the first time I met those guys. I still didn't, I mean, I don't even think I listened to Bleach until I was driving out to Seattle the next year. And I'd heard Soundgarden stuff, I think maybe around that point, but didn't really like them. I thought they were a little too hair metal. At least that early incarnation, they felt like kind of hair metal to me. And coming from the DC punk rock scene where where everybody's very political and punk rock. And even I didn't really fit into that scene because I was more new wave. I was really in Gang of Four and the Stranglers and Psychedelic Furs and REM and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really pay attention to the Seattle scene at all is what I'm trying to get at. But after Nevermind, and I was getting fed up with the DC scene because I didn't really fit in with the punk rock thing either because of my stuff. And then he's like, you should come out here and I also happened to get kicked out of a house that I had my recording studio in. I was given like 30 days to get out because the landlady found out that I had a recording studio in there. So I kind of, everything just sort of happened at once. And I was like, okay, I'm going to move out to Seattle.
And were you pleasantly surprised when you got there then?
Yeah, it was cool. I liked it. I mean, I got there in the summer of '91, and then by the end of that year, I started touring with Nirvana as a drum tech, a bass drum tech.
Oh, you were that early on, yeah?
Wow.
Wow.
For like 2 years, from the end of '91 until the middle of '93, I think.
Wow. So
Yeah.
yeah, you were there for the big shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
So did you have to deal with some of the nightmares of finding parts for drum kits after the stage destruction? And
That was basically my job, is finding parts for drum kits and putting drums back together.
Yeah.
You know, most of the kits were rentals. I mean, pretty much everywhere they were rentals, and we tried. The hardest thing to find was his hi-hat stands, because they were very specific. They were there was only, I can't remember the brand, Sonar maybe, but they were the only ones that went high enough for him. He liked to play it really high.
Yeah.
And there was only one brand, and like if you're in New Zealand or Japan, it's kind of hard to find.
I've always wondered, actually, the sheer size of Grohl's kit. Like where did he actually, like, what make was like all the components?
Used Tama. He was endorsed by Tama. He liked Tama's. It wasn't that big. They were fairly standard, 16, 18 toms, and I think he mostly went with a 22 kick. Sometimes maybe he had a 24, but it was all standard stuff. He wasn't that picky about it. He just backed the fuck out of
it. His rack tom was 16-inch, yeah.
Yeah. But it always looked huge because he liked to sit low and he liked to have his tom really high. Well, because it was big, it had to be really high. So it always looked like he was buried, but way behind the kit. But
I always thought it was like a modified floor tom, used as a rack,
So during the whole period of from when he first did that very first song with me, when I moved to Seattle, I moved there with my girlfriend at the time, and found a place in West Seattle, and Dave moved in with us. He lived with me for like probably a year and a half or something, or 2 years, before he eventually bought his own house. And that first house is where I recorded the Nirvana songs, that and the Melvins, and then me and Dave. So Dave recorded a lot of those songs on the first record during that time, pretty much all the way up until we went in to record the first Foo Fighters record. We had already recorded all those songs as demos on my 8-track.
Just the Nirvana songs, was it just the 3 Nirvana songs that were released that you did there? I'm fascinated by those 3. So, like, they genuinely are my 3 favorite.
Oh, thank you.
That time period of Nirvana. Because I just thought that was like just them being so new wave and back to basics, and basically I think the band that they really wanted to be, perhaps, maybe you could say. But yeah, what was the setup for that? Because was there many overdubs, or did they record it live? And
no, it was all live, and then the vocals were overdubbed. That's it. It was a weird setup. I mean, it was in the basement of this rental house. There was no separation between the control room and the live room, which was just a little alcove in the unfinished basement. It was recorded on my 1/2-inch 8-track Tascam 38. It was very basic setup, very old school. We did all 3 of those songs in one day.
Really?
Wow.
And completely live. Like, was there click tracks or?
Oh, fuck no. They've never.
Oh, that is music to my ears.
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to understand, Dave is like has the most perfect tempo of any drummer I've ever seen. But click tracks, nobody used click tracks back then anyway. Nowadays, I prefer click tracks. I like them just because you can, now that you see everything and you know where things are wrong, and it's much easier to fix if you know what you're trying to fix it to. rather than relative. But it's certainly very different from how music used to be recorded back in the day.
Yeah, I think the whole ethos that Nirvana had during that time period, definitely clicks wouldn't have suited that really.
Oh God, no.
Then after, so we did all that, and then so we had recorded all the, I think 90% of that album as demos. After Kurt died, and he kind of just went out of music for a while, he had come back to me, after he had gone on a long trip or something, and said, I want to record this stuff in a 24-track studio and just see what happens, and send out some tapes or something like that. And there was a studio down the street from his house in North Seattle, in Shoreline, Robert Lang's studio, which is this crazy, crazy studio. One of the craziest studio I've ever been to. This guy lived on a house that was up on a hill overlooking the Puget Sound, and he had a garage that was down the hill, and he started just digging out the garage underneath the house. And he's still digging now, basically. 30 years later, the thing is still under construction, and it's this massive cavernous thing that he used all this marble rocks stuff. It's just an amazing studio. Sounds amazing. And I loved it because you can make the drums sound like Bonham in there.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Bonham. You can't get any better than Bonham drum sounds, if you ask me. So.
Yeah, I think I can just leave now, Frank. He's Barrett has confirmed everything for me.
So we went in there. We had basically 5 days booked to do 15 songs. And Dave and I had set up a system over the years of how to record him because he played every instrument. So I just would have everything set up ready to record. We spent probably half a day getting all the sounds and stuff. So we had the drums ready, the bass ready, the guitar ready. And he would just go in and play a drum track with the music in his head. Then he would come in and, play a guitar track or two, probably 2 guitar tracks for rhythm guitars, then put the bass down, and then maybe add a little lead thing, and then go on to the next song. And he was basically about 1 song an hour doing everything. Do all the basic.
And that was he wasn't even playing the scratch tracks. It was just his own memory of the songs.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. And
he would do the most amazing thing is how he does the drum tracks with all that in his head. And he would if there was a part of the song where there wasn't supposed to be drums or something, he'd just do a light click track with the hi-hat or something that we would take out later. He got almost every single drum track was first take.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That was my main question for you, Barrett, was exactly as a drummer, how did he actually go about doing it as a one-man band? So literally playing along in his head, that's just phenomenal.
He just plays it in his head and plays the drums to it.
Wow.
It's absolutely astonishing how he could do it.
Fantastic.
He was a wonder.
Where did he learn to play like that? Was it just listening to Bonham growing up?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Is there anybody actually from all the artists you've worked with who comes close to just kind of crazy musicianship to Grohl?
Nobody like that has that set of skills that he does. His biggest skills are that he has perfect time. He knows exactly what he's going to play. There's never any second guessing parts, or he comes up with a part and that's the part. There's no well, maybe we should try to put this different vibe on it or this sound. It's there's none of that. It's just everything's this is how it goes.
It was what you said, you had demos basically for all the songs on Foo Fighters. So when I came to the studio, he had decided basically everything. That's why it could be done in 5 days. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you listen to the demos, they're really not very different.
Yeah.
Not very different at all.
Everything that's actually on that, you said you started demoing it from probably, you say 1990, but everything that we actually hear on the finished product was recorded in those 5 days.
Yeah. There might have been a song or two that weren't demoed out. Have you watched any of my Sonic Highways outtakes on my YouTube channel?
Yeah, they were the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I was looking at.
That's what you're talking about, yeah.
Ozone.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 That's actually out. He put that out on a B-side.
If we could go back to get a bit more technical, when you're saying the drum sound in Robert Lang's studio,
Mm-hmm.
just I think anytime we've ever recorded or I've ever done anything with drums, I think what you achieved on that Foo's first album is nearly always a reference that I'd reference for just phenomenal drum sounds.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah.
It's funny because that was actually like only the second time I'd ever been in a big 24-track studio. So I was still learning how to use stuff. And, you know, a lot of people, I think even the guys who mixed it, Tom and Rob Schnaff, Tom Rothrock and Rob Schnaff, were a little like taken aback by the sounds. Like it was a little too ambient for them. But, you know, I used lots of mics, so they could have. That room is really insane. I mean, it's very echoey. So basically, you know, I would do the kick probably had a RA20 inside and a FET 47 on the outside. I'm not even sure if he had the FET 47 then. So usually I do something inside and then outside, and then I'll make a drum tunnel to cover the mics so the cymbals don't bleed in. 57 top and bottom snare. Can't remember what I used on the toms, but they were close mics. I might have used 87s for that. I go back and forth between condensers and dynamics for toms, and then overheads, and then room mics is what I did.
With the room mics, would you like put them high in the room or close to walls or kind of on the ground? Or
Being that was kind of my first time, I probably just put them up in the middle of. I mean, that room has 18-foot ceilings, so I mean, I wasn't going really high. I'd probably put it at like 6 feet or something like that. You know, far spread stereo. I don't even think I was doing mono room back then, which is I always do now. I'll do a mono, really crushed, compressed mic along with the stereo.
And it was all recorded to tape as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that I mean Pro Tools wasn't even around then, so it's 95.
Yeah, which is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, they just so when they started doing color in the shape, that Pro Tools was just starting out. That was the first time they had started using it on that, and they would bounce stuff from the tape into their fix and then bounce it back to tape.
But
well, I'm glad to hear that you guys liked the drum sound, because I know that even Dave and his people never liked that first record. They thought it sounded amateurish or whatever. I don't know.
Like, sometimes I will listen to that Foo Fighters first album just for the drums.
Yeah.
And the guitar sounds are everything about it is like really just sounds amazing. So it'll always be just one of the like that and a neutral. And me and Ian even spoke about it before that we would nearly actually pick Foo Fighters over a neutral in terms of overall sound.
Yeah. And like in the best possible compliment possible, Barrett, I always jokingly or lovingly say that Foo Fighters' first album is Nirvana's fifth album. Like it just sounds, it's like the drums. Oh, you know, you could say, right, this is the second day. You know.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I hear that a lot from the Foo's fans that that's their favorite sounding record or that's their favorite record. I think that too. Although I really like Color in the Shape a lot. I think the songs are probably even a little stronger and better, but I thought it was a little overproduced. I mean, they did take almost a year to make that record, recorded it 3 times. But I think that record, I mean, the songs on it are amazing.
Yeah, I think just listening to Dave Grohl playing on anything is one of my favorite things to do in music. So that's why I'll always pick the Foo's first album as my favorite one. Yeah, the distortions, like, were they done through pedals most of the time? Like, which pedals or amps did he bring in?
You know, for that record, I'm pretty sure we just used my JCM 800 as the main guitar amp. Can't remember what else we had there. I mean, besides the can. And yes, pedals were used. I think the main stuff I was using was like a MXR Distortion Plus, a Marshall Governor.
Nice.
There you go, Frank.
Love that pedal. The Marshall Governor is a great distortion pedal.
Yeah.
Rat pedal. It was all very basic stuff. I don't know. It was really mostly just the JCM 800 with his guitar. My amp's a 50 watter, so it's not too loud to get the good distortion out of it.
Nice. And you still use that amp, the same one?
Yeah.
Wow. I think one of the biggest questions I had from that was, what is the petrol can?
Hold on a second.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Will we actually get to see it? We have to share this with our podcast listeners, Frank.
You know, what's funny is I bought this thing.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I bought this thing in London.
Crazy.
In 1988, I lived in London for a few months. I bought it at some pawn shop. It's called the Can. I don't know if you can see that here. Oh, it's backwards, huh? But it's made by the same company that makes Ampeg stuff.
Oh.
Wow.
So it's battery powered, and it's just, it's a really shitty kind of sounding guitar amp. But I've managed to put it on almost every single record I've made.
It's such a, like, that's was it only used on Exhausted, or was it in there?
No, the Exhausted sound is not that amp. I'm trying to think of what song on there. It's the guitar sound that's just really sandpapery. It's like Exhausted's a little more just, beyond distorted, but it's a little that sounds a little warmer.
Have you ever used that? Like, I'm sure you've used it in every way imaginable, like with vocals or anything like that.
I think the demo of Weenie Beanie, the vocals were in that. But I think when we recorded for the record, I think I went through the Marshall for that.
Yeah, the vocal on that is pretty extreme. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you got any other kind of references for where you might have actually used that on later records?
It's always just a little snippet here and there, like in a lead or something. It's good for lead because it'll really cut through. I know I always bring it, and I always get it thrown on somewhere. Like, make this little sound out of it with this amp.
It's just such a nice little Barrett Jones Easter egg that's always thrown in there.
I'm pretty sure. You know the band Dover from Spain? So I did their record Late at Night. I'm pretty sure I used it on that a bunch. Yeah, they're a fucking great band. They're not really together anymore, but they were the biggest rock band in Spain for a while. A sister team, the singer and the guitar player, and they were both the songwriters. And really great, amazing band. Yeah, so
amazing. As well with the Foo's first doesn't Greg Dully plays on Ecstatic?
Greg does play on it, and I would not be able to tell you what exactly he played. Like, even listening to it, I can't remember what he played on it. He showed up one day, and David handed him the guitar and said, "Hey, play something on this." And he played something. I don't quite remember what it was.
He was just around. It wasn't pre-organized or.
No, not at all. No, he was just coming to hang out. He was living in Seattle at the time. We were all friends.
Yeah, it could have been a super group, I'd say, if you'd really contacted everybody who was around.
Dave has always been very humble about stuff, so he didn't think that the recording was going to actually end up being the record. I did. I kind of felt, at least that's how I was treating it, like this is going to be his record. And I felt that it was going to be, there was no way that it was not going to be huge just because he was so well known and the music was so fucking good. So.
Wow.
That just leads me to a question. I read in an interview you did earlier on this year, Barrett. I think it was a Variety, and you were just commenting about those sessions where you sat in the Nevermind sessions in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And I think you're reflecting back, saying that they just seemed like so long a process, and so quite slow.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, just when you're speaking there with us, there's like a kind of pattern there. Like, you've the first Foo Fighters album done in 5 days, the Pussy Galore stuff done very quick. Just now, like, as a seasoned producer, with decades of experience behind you, is there a kind of right or wrong way in terms of, can you essentially just take too much time and too much variety, or would you be an advocate of the minimalist approach?
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
You can definitely spend too long on something, and depending on the artist or the band, if a band totally knows what they're doing and has their shit together, you can get it done quick. If you're writing parts, figuring out stuff, coming up with stuff, that takes time. As a rule of thumb now, I say you need at least 2 to 3 days per song now.
Okay.
That's what I try to tell bands. But at the same time, you could record a whole album in a day. You can do it. It really depends on what you want and how much you're willing to let slide. In this day and age, people's ears are so used to things being in time and in tune. And unless you're not making that kind of music, which less and less people are doing, you kind of got to go with that.
You've worked with the Foo Fighters since, obviously, with that Sonic Highways album that came out. You actually played on Subterranean, yeah?
Yeah, I played Ebo.
Nice.
That was fun.
That was recorded in Robert Lang too.
Yeah.
Same studio. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you listen to his That Play song?
Yes, yeah.
I actually got to play that song with him live. We did it. It's the only time he's ever done it live. We had a full band together for this big arena show in North Carolina.
Really?
A year and a half ago. Warren Haynes, I don't know if you know who that is. He does these benefit shows in Asheville, North Carolina. You can find it on YouTube. It was we had 3 guitar players, bass, keyboards, percussion, and Dave playing drums.
Wow. Yeah, because that was a feat of musicianship. Watching him put that together.
Yeah.
kind of like seeing the Foo Fighters' first album done in real time.
I know. And he had to, he there was no punching in. He did every single thing all the way through.
What is it? It's like 24 minutes long?
Yeah.
Jesus. Post Foo Fighters, you worked with Pearl Jam as well?
I did from 2008 to 2010. You know how Pearl Jam does, they do live bootlegs of all their shows. So I mixed every show that they did for those 3 years of tours that went on to their, bootleg series.
Yeah. That was studio work. It wasn't live with them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in 2008, I actually was on tour with them, and I would mix in this bus every night after the show. So they would try to get it out the next day. That was weird because the system on the bus was bad, and I couldn't hear things very well. So that was tough.
I can imagine.
The 2 years after that, I just did it from my home studio. But then, since then, I work with Mike McCready and Stone Gossard a lot.
You've recorded Brad.
Yeah. And I would tour with them too. I was tour manager and sound man for them.
Wow.
McCready and I we've done a lot of like movie soundtracks and TV show soundtracks together and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I really like doing movies and TVs. I did one with Dave too. There's a movie called Touch.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that just one track?
No, it was a whole movie. He did the soundtrack for the whole movie. There's a couple actual songs. Yeah, there's like 3 full songs, and then the rest is just like background music. One of my favorite songs I've ever recorded was from that session. It's Dave and the guy from X, John Doe. Sorry,
Yeah.
John Doe and Dave. It's called This Loving Thing. Really sweet, kind of like country style song from the Touch soundtrack. Yeah.
Amazing. I didn't know that was a full album. And I have homework to do.
Actually watch the movie because it's actually a pretty good movie.
What year is that from? That's
98, 97, somewhere around there. Yeah, actually more like 97, I think. That was actually soon after the first record. It was probably before we started doing Color in the Shade. I think Dave's a little embarrassed by it, but I think it's good. Not so much.
Yeah, I can't let you go without asking you about the presidency of the United States as well. That
Yeah.
first record.
Another band I totally loved. They're a band I had just been seeing around Seattle, and just their live show was so good. They were such a great live band, and I always remember like this one show I saw them where Chris, the singer, had broken a string, and of course, he was playing a 2-string bass, so he was down to 1 string, so he had to replace the string in the middle of the song. But they never stopped playing the groove, and he was talking to the audience, changing the string and tuning it, and just keeping with the groove the whole time without missing a beat. And I was just like, oh my god, that's so amazing. I mean, they just had such a great vibe to them that I was excited when they came in to record. And then I recorded their first cassette tape. They did a 16-song cassette tape, which they used that recording for the the songs that made it onto that first record. Plus, I kind of told the guy who signed them at Columbia about them, so he signed them.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you're responsible for Peaches being an anthem, the global anthem.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's such an interesting sounding album as well, especially like the drums on that. It's like it's so minimal. Like,
Well, they didn't even want him to have any cymbals at all, and I think he finally talked them into having a splash.
yeah.
That was the only cymbal, and there was no. I don't even think he had a floor tom, did he? He might have had a floor tom, but no regular tom. It was a very minimal kit. They originally didn't want a drummer, and Jason had convinced them to let him play in the band, but only if he had very minimal drums.
Like how would you have mic'd what little kit he had? Like, was that just one microphone?
Yeah, basically. I don't even remember. I mean, that was on 8-track too, so it was very minimal. When I was on 8-track, all the drums got recorded to stereo, so everything would just be mixed down to stereo. So I probably just had like kick, snare, and overheads or something.
Wow.
And I think that was all done live. I didn't do room mics for that sort of stuff.
That's another amazing Bible of an album.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I mean, it's amazing. Listening back to the 8-track era of my career, that I was always frustrated by the sounds then. But I mean, now I think the guitar sounds from that era are stuff I couldn't get on 24-track for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what that machine did. Why it does something in the compression or something that just makes it great.
Yeah, I think as well, when you have to work to something smaller, you'll always force something very good out. When you have too much choice, you almost like have too many options.
Oh, yeah, always. I always say that. I mean, when I first started recording bands, I had a 4-track, so that's how I did Pussy Galore record. That was 4-track. I had my 8-track by the time I started recording Dave. So
just reminded me there of the Curmudgeon Nirvana song. The effect on that, I've always wanted to know, was that afterwards or was that actually recorded on his guitar, the flange?
That was recorded live, and that he brought all his stuff. He probably used my cabinet. He had a rack mount Mesa Boogie thing, if I remember correctly, and I don't think that was flange. I think he had a small stone phaser.
Oh, wow.
Just blowing your mind now, Frank. Your whole sense of being now is just.
I think it's a small stone. I could be wrong about that.
Wow.
Kurt really only used the DS3 distortion and that small stone. That was like his main pedals. He didn't really use anything else.
Yeah, very minimal. Another thing I was always fascinated about from that period, if I could ask you, the Priest, they called him, the stuff with William S. Burroughs. Yeah. Was that just like literally you recorded like 10 minutes of Kurt doing feedback?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Kurt came into the studio and we weren't going off any of the William S. Burroughs stuff at all. He just made noise and sent him the track of guitar noise. And I think William F. Burroughs then maybe talked over that, or maybe he had talked before and they just put the two together.
Just meld them together.
It was very simple, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and as I said, the three songs that you recorded for Nirvana were, without a shadow of a doubt, just I think it's just that period in Nirvana that was the most fascinating to me, because it's not really covered too often, but yet they were probably, I don't know, maybe you can tell me otherwise, that I feel it was when they were most at their powers, the peak of their powers as a three-piece.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that was done basically early 92. That's what I feel like, though. That was probably early 92. Maybe it was even before that, though. I wonder if that was in the fall of 91, before the record really blew up. I just remember it being very chill and relaxed, and things hadn't gotten really crazy yet. Sad that I didn't get a chance to record them more. I would have liked to, but they had other people around that were recording them, so I was like the fourth in line at that point.
Well, as Ian said, we got the fourth Nirvana album eventually with the Foo Fighters' first album, so
Yeah.
it's as close as we'll get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about like Seattle right now, how like obviously it's changed massively since when you first moved there and through the 90s and stuff, but what is the kind of music scene right now? Like, what kind of bands come to you most? Do you see which kind of is predominant in the city?
There is not really predominant. There's so much different kinds of music. I mean, there's still a really good, there's still plenty of people playing guitars, which is great. There's a pretty big like Americana, alt country kind of thing. Funny, last year, like two of the coolest bands I did, one was a kind of a shoegazer band, which was really good, and then one was a very much prog rock band, like very much to the original sense of Yes or something like that, just really.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way it is nowadays. There's no trends anymore. Everybody's just playing what they want to play.
Everything's niche too. I mean, there's just no.
Yeah, at the internet, you can live wherever you want, basically, inside any genre.
Yeah.
I suppose just one more kind of question for yourself, Barrett, just in terms of advice you would impart to, let's say, all the future Dave Grohls, the multi-instrumentalists who think they can record a one-man show. Now they might not have the perfect time or whatnot, but is there anything kind of you'd like to impart on them that they want to embark on an album and it's just them?
Write good songs. That's really what it comes down to most, is having some good songs. It's not easy. It comes natural to some people, but the people you see doing it make it look easy, but it's not that easy. The line between mediocre and amazing is very small, and it's not discernible. You don't know what that X factor is that makes something connect. I mean, it's usually, if you see that somebody's authentic, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is if you can come out in your music without showing how much you're trying or like want it to happen. If you can be authentic, that's really what it comes down to. And it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We'll let you get back to your day. Once again, thank you so much for talking to us.
Cool. Yeah. Nice meeting you.
And thanks very much, Barrett. It's an absolute honor.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable.
Great record.
Excellent album. We learned a lot from
Great
it.
record.
The Elephant Room recommends.
And we're back. You just heard our extended interview with Barrett Jones. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we're going to recommend you some lovely music. Ian, what have you got for us?
So, during my research through the Barrett Jones archive, I was on his YouTube channel, the Laundry Room Studio YouTube channel, And he has the Laundry Room Studio live sessions that he's been doing, I think, since 2016. And I came across this really good Seattle-based indie band, Moon Palace. So their first album was launched in 2017, self-titled. And they're fronted by twin sisters, Kat and Carrie Beale, guitar and bass, excellent vocal harmonies. But that first album in particular, the Moon Palace self-titled, it is incredibly atmospheric, kind of atmospheric ambient rock. And their kind of second album then, which was released last year, called Shadowcast, it's kind of back into the more indie kind of, I don't want to say mainstream, but it's a bit more mainstream than the first album anyway. But no, they're a great band. I definitely recommend.
Love it. And their full session is on the Laundry Room YouTube.
It is, yeah. In 2018, they visited. I think they did 3 or 4 tracks with them.
Cool. Check it out. Shane, what you got for us?
Well, what I am going to recommend for our listeners this week is I'm going to go down to Cork and recommend our friends Elbe, who we've played with before. So Seamus, Nora and Kieran, also known as Elbe. But they have their EP Contours available on Spotify. And I'd listen to the song Never Forget off of that. Really recommend that one. Their songs, really cool atmosphere that they conjure up, really good grooves and things like that. Very interesting lyrics and catchy too. So I just would definitely just go out and listen to their EP Contours on Spotify. I think they have stuff on Bandcamp as well. So obviously at the moment Bandcamp waived their fees. JW Francis was talking about that last week as well on a Friday. So that's the best day if you are going to go support an artist and get something off of their Bandcamp. Do it on a Friday so all the money goes to them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. They're definitely worth a listen. They put a lot of time into their sounds, their guitar sounds, and just the overall sound of the recordings is really, really easy to listen to. Not easy listening, but it's easy to listen to, and it's very like warm guitar sounds and warm rhythm section and just well-written songs. So yeah, and they're great live. So if we ever get to see bands live again, I'd love to play with them again, and I'd 100%. Recommend going to see them.
Yeah, really, really genuine people and great to play with live.
I'm going to do the same. I'm going to recommend an Irish band who I have kind of tipped as, I think, my favorite Irish band for a good few years. Dublin band Tandem Felix, who I've seen many times. They released an album called Rom-Com last year, which just start to finish, so well produced, so well layered. Songwriting is flawless. David A. Tapley, the singer, is just so good at writing a simple Americana singer-songwriter song and then just building it up and layering it with these lovely, rich layers of guitars and keyboards. And yeah, every time they release something, the production just gets better and better and better. Like, I loved their really early stuff that was like recorded at home on like very cheap, almost lo-fi kind of stuff with like weird sound effects. It sounded like a lo-fi version of Radiohead or something, or Beck. But yeah, every time they come out with something that's just kind of raised the bar in terms of just like really stellar productions and quality and sound and stuff like that. And they have a new single called The Assassination coming out this Friday, the 27th. So it'll be out by the time this is out. But I would recommend listening to all of their stuff on Spotify. And once again, as Shane just said, going on to Bandcamp and waiting till a Friday maybe when they drop their fees and getting a t-shirt, a tote bag, vinyl, any of their merchandise, because they're really, really good and probably my favorite current Irish band.
They're my dad's second favorite Irish band. So so he'll listen to us, but I caught him listening to them. He'll listen. I think he probably listens to them more than he listens to us, but he'll probably never admit it.
No,
I wouldn't blame him.
His YouTube is Tandem Felix making dinner on Valentine's Day, and then something the Elephant Room, So that's
good man, Tom.
Yeah, he'll like that shout out.
We'll leave it there, guys. Please like, subscribe, share, follow, all that nonsense. And we'll leave it there.